Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to MauLer's A Critique of Resident Evil 7. So you may remember I did a reaction series to MauLer's A Critique of Outlast in regards to, well, it's basically a long form review on why he personally didn't like Outlast and the reasons for coming to that conclusion. Um, and I shared my thoughts on that, on how Outlast is one of my favorite horror games and why I liked it and the things I disagreed with him on and stuff. Um, and now, Everett Taves, you have chosen for another uh, reaction reward for the Mega Stream donations to have me react to the Resident Evil 7 one. Um, I am familiar with Resident Evil 7 as well. It is another one of those horror games I really like. And it's my favorite of the Resident Evil games I have seen played or played myself. I played one of the Resident Evil games. It was either one or two when I was really young. Um, I just don't remember which one it was. Um, but it's been obviously a long time. I've seen Resident Evil 2 through the remake recently. I've seen Resident Evil 7 all the way through, including all of the DLC. And I've seen a little tiny bit of Resident Evil 6. Or was it 5? 5 or 6. One of the two. Whichever one is the one that everybody hates. I know it's the one that everybody hates. I just can't remember if it's 5 or 6. I've never been huge into the Resident Evil franchise personally. But out of what I have seen of it, I can see why it's so popular. It just mostly hasn't been for me. But Resident Evil 7, when I checked that out when it came out, really surprised me on how good it was. The scares, the story, the characters, the latter of two, the story and characters being a bigger deal for me than any of the scares. But the atmosphere and everything, the types of enemies and stuff. I really liked that it wasn't like a typical zombie kind of thing. And from the bit that I did know and do still know about Resident Evil, it kind of took it in a different direction, which I liked. I liked the kind of the crazy Louisiana family kind of story they did. And I really liked just the overall idea of what they did with it. I think it just worked out really well. But maybe MauLer does not view it the same way. In fact, the fact that this is a critique on Resident Evil 7 kind of leads me to believe he won't. Now, I still acknowledge that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. MauLer is entitled to not like it if he doesn't like it. I'm not going to tell him he's wrong, and I'm not going to say that in these reactions. I will share my own views on things when I feel the need comes up to do so during these reactions. And it's basically a simple compare and contrast situation. I'm not going to bash his opinions. I'm not going to say that he's wrong. I'm just going to simply state my own views on it because the quality of something like this, of a piece of media, is inherently subjective. And it's based entirely on what we view it to be. Different people view things differently, and different people see certain things as problems while others don't. It's as simple as that. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this series. I did actually watch a Let's Play of Resident Evil 7 not too long ago from John Wolf. I watched his Let's Play because I recently started getting into his videos. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what MauLer has to say on this because I've got a fresher mind than like I did with Outlast, for example. With Outlast, it's like I wasn't like as refreshed on it. But also, I will acknowledge right off the bat that Resident Evil 7 isn't perfect. There are some flaws. There are definitely some issues that come up throughout the game. Not only just in terms of graphics and that kind of stuff, but also in terms of story and character stuff. It's not a perfect game, but no game is perfect. Even my favorite game of all time, Detroit Become Human, isn't perfect, and I don't expect any game to be. So we're just going to get into this and hope to see what we can see and compare and contrast thoughts and all of that. And of course, I will wait for Everett and his book reports in the comments. Um, but in the meantime, this is being redirected onto, my normal redirect sources. Because even though this is a YouTube video series, I just want to be safe. I don't want to risk anything. I don't want to risk maybe the game itself getting claimed or anything. So I'm just going to be safe, and I'm going to redirect it. So that being said, we're going to get this going. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the video. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin the spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so I find myself agreeing a lot more with him on this one than I did with Outlast. As you may remember with his critique of Outlast, I tended to have a lot more disagreements in regards to a lot of what he was saying in terms of story, characters, different mechanics and whatnot, yada, 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 yada. I mean, granted, all we really talked about this time was the story. But as I said in the beginning, I do notice that there are problems with this game. I do recognize that it's not perfect. And like I said, I don't expect any game to be perfect. I don't expect any game to handle everything as perfectly as it could or should. I think that expecting that kind of thing is honestly naive and stupid. Because you're never going to get it. There's no such thing as a perfect game. Just like there's no such thing as a perfect movie, TV series, yada, yada, yada. It's not possible for it to be perfect. I mean, the only way you could get any kind of media close to perfect, in your opinion, in your viewpoint, is for you to make it. Because then it would be more close to perfect for you. But then even for others, it wouldn't be. Because the thing is, everyone is different. Every single person on Earth is different and has different likes, dislikes, interests. They view the same thing differently. So what may be perfect and well handled to one person, someone else might find issue with. And as such, nothing can ever be perfect. Nothing can ever be perfectly made, because there will always be people who find issue with it. There will always be people who will see one thing as good while other people see it as bad. There is no set objective truth on that, because anyone can see it any way. And there's always people who will see things one way or the other. It's never going to be perfectly universal. It can't be. The very concept of free will and just human individuality won't allow it. But speaking on to this, I do acknowledge that this game has flaws. I mean, it's one of my favorite horror games, yes, but I acknowledge it's not perfect. It has issues with the story, with characters, with certain elements in it. And MauLer talked about quite a few of them in here, with the story specifically. Now, my main issues with the story come into play with the later half of the main story. When it gets into explaining most of how all of this came to be. I think that this would actually be a lot better story-wise if we didn't have that explanation. Kind of like the mysterious elements of it were just what it was and what we had to expect from it. Instead, the way they explained it all with the entire E-series stuff with Mia and her partner's job and everything and what they were doing there, it kind of ruined it for me in a lot of ways. It made it it took away, honestly, the scariness of it. It took away the intensity of it and made it very, not boring, that's definitely the wrong word, but just not as interesting. I feel like by explaining everything and giving it this huge, like, convoluted backstory, made it feel kind of weak. Again, it just took away the scariness. It took away the fear part of it all, which I don't think a horror game should ever do. I don't think a horror game should make things less scary by explaining it. I'm not saying that a horror game can't explain where its monsters or whatever came from, but there are ways to do it that you can still keep it rather frightening. A great example of this would be The Evil Within. The Evil Within, most of the game you have no idea what's happening, why you're there, where you even are, what the hell is just going on in general. And then you find out at the end, and this is an older game, so I'm not worried about spoiler at this point for this. But you find out at the end of the first Evil Within that it was all, and you could put this together beforehand, but you find out it's all a, not hallucination. Why was I thinking that word? It's all basically a virtual reality kind of thing. You're stuck into this virtual reality being controlled by the mind of a psychopath. And all of these monsters and shit, they can kill you, because if they kill you in there, it like destroys your mind basically. But it's not actually real otherwise. And that's kind of the big twist of Evil Within. However, that twist doesn't make what happens any less terrifying. It doesn't make the situations less scary or intense. And when you play the second game, you go into the second game already knowing that it's this situation, not only from the last game, but you actually go into the world of the second game knowing what you're going into. You know that you're going into this virtual reality. So you know right from the beginning of the second game that that's what's happening. And even so, all the monsters and enemies and situations you come across are still frightening. It still scares you because it's handled in a way to where the surprise doesn't take away from the horror experience. But Resident Evil 7, it kind of does. The big twist takes away from that experience, in my opinion, by making, like, it's just so convoluted and silly and, as was put, campy, that it doesn't hold the same weight to it anymore. It feels just so, like you just don't care at that point. That was my biggest issue with the story. He mentioned the issue with the Bakers and how the game didn't really make them feel sympathetic prior to the ending bit when you mind meld with Jack, as he put it, and of course the DLC. I'm not going to talk about the DLC yet, but I do get where he's coming from on this point. I viewed it differently when I first went through the game. Now, I didn't play this game myself. Like, I played Outlast, but I didn't play this one. But I've seen it played many times now. And the first time I watched it played was with Markiplier's Let's Play, which he mentioned in this. That was the first time I saw anyone play it. And I sympathized with the Bakers almost right away. Because right when it was like, okay, you know they're infected, you know that this is not their fault and everything, and you see the evidence around the house that they used to be ordinary, everyday people. From like Jack's sports memorabilia and stuff, to the different bedrooms and all this different stuff they used to do. It's like I had a lot of sympathy for their characters. I did. I always saw them as sympathetic. I always saw them as characters who were just as much victims. So I definitely disagree with him, but I understand his point of view on that. And the same thing goes for Mia. Like, he mentions, like, the moment Mia, like, cut off his arm with the chainsaw, that was kind of it for him. He had no sympathy for her. He had no reason to care about trying to save her at that point. His only goal was to escape, yada, yada. For me, it was very different because even like after that point, I still cared about Mia. I still saw that this was not her fault and that she was not to blame for it and that she needed to be saved. I still wanted to save her. I still saw that as the main goal. So I definitely disagree with him, but I still, again, do see where he was coming from. I understand. I get it. I just personally saw it a different way. Um, and yeah, then he brought up the point as well about the entire last decision about saving Mia or Zoe. That one I fully agree with. Because here's the thing, I already mentioned the ending portion of the game, the last part of the game, was where I really thought it kind of went a little downhill. And basically that was the moment where I felt it did. I felt the entire, oh, you either have to save Zoe or Mia thing, one, is just a completely overdone trope. And two, really just felt cheap. It just felt like it was like not really earned to do it. And as he puts it, as he noted, like if you don't choose Mia, if you choose Zoe, you get punished. And if you choose Mia, you get rewarded. It's like there's only one real good option. And in that case, why have the option? Why give the choice if only one of them is a validly good option? Yes, you can end the game with the bad option with choosing to save Zoe, but everything goes wrong. You don't get anything out of it. Like, you don't save Mia, you don't save Zoe, you don't save anyone but yourself, basically. So it's like, it comes across as just being extremely pointless. I just feel like it would have made more sense that instead of having the decision, Ethan made that choice just in story on his own. He saved Mia on his own because that's what he was there to do, rather than give you, the player, the choice to do so. And then, like, with Zoe, something else happens with all of that. But yeah, it just felt like, in fact, I think I would have liked it that way, yeah, because if let's say Ethan automatically uses the serum to save Mia. It's like not a player choice or anything. Zoe gets upset at you. And the entire thing is like kind of this like story on how you can't save everyone as well. Like that comes in as another kind of aspect to it. Which in and of itself is a little cliche, yes. But I think the you can't save everyone kind of message resonates and would work in that situation, personally. At least better than what they did. Um, and yeah, I also agree with him on the entire point on how silly and ridiculous it was uh, for Evelyn to become the giant monster after you use the serum on her. Um, and it did just feel like, oh, it's Resident Evil, has to have a giant monster. It felt very much like that. So I definitely agree with that too. It did feel very silly. But as he said the story overall was still pretty solid. It's not the best, but it could have been worse. And I view it kind of that way too, except I'm a little more positive towards it than he is. Um, but yeah, it definitely could have been better, for sure. but it also definitely could have been worse. I feel like in the end it was just it was good. It was solid. I really enjoyed it, but he did bring up some notable points. Um, but we're gonna have to see where it goes from here. Where what else he talks about? I mean, obviously we're gonna talk about the characters, the graphics, the all of that stuff, and the DLC is probably gonna be last. But I will say, like, the DLC does shed a lot onto the story that makes things a little better in some cases. But the fact that it is from a paid DLC, which he kind of implied is a bad thing, yeah, it's just not a good decision. Um, because it basically deals down to that idea of like, oh, we have to pay to get the full story. We have to pay extra outside of the main game just to get the whole story, you know. But I'll leave it at that. So tell me in the comments below what you thought of this first video of MauLer's critique of Resident Evil 7. What did you agree on or disagree on? I'll wait for your book report, Everett, because I know you'll be posting one. But yeah, tell me your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. If you want to check out any of my social media links and more, please check them out over to the side. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please leave those down below. In the meantime, though, thank you so much once again for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.